Before we start, please remember, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and do click on the bell button.
Hi everybody, welcome to Cope with Hope. I've asked Laurie to come on because the other day we were talking and she says that she felt it was really important that we take out to mourn what's been happening these past 4 months and what's still happening now. And I'd like her to expand a little bit about that, as well as to talk a little bit about compassion and how much that's needed while we go through all this. Hi, Laurie, and thank you so much for joining me today.
It's always wonderful to connect with you, Nandinii.
Yes.
It's interesting because as you mentioned, we had just kind of briefly talked about this the other day, and how it came into my consciousness right now is I had reconnected with another friend who we hadn't spoken in a long time. And I was just bringing her up to speed on what was going on in my life. And she made a statement that I felt like was so profound. And she was talking about how all of us around the world, because we're experiencing obviously the COVID and all that entails. Here in the US, there's been the Black Lives Matter, politics. So there's just, and I'm sure that it's probably the same. Maybe the presenting issues are a little bit different throughout the world, but there's just a lot going on right now. And and we each have our own beliefs about, why that is and what might happen. But for right now, we were talking about how we have not given ourselves the time and the opportunity to mourn. Yeah. A lot of people might say that might not have even, I think, crossed their consciousness. But I think it's so valid. Maybe our lives weren't that great before. Or maybe we thought that they were. I think it really doesn't matter. What's important to consider is that what we're experiencing now is so unlike what we experienced before.
Yes.
And even if it's maybe a better situation or a different situation, it's different. And we need to acknowledge that to ourselves and to one another, and to really give ourselves the time to go through the mourning, because it is a death. It is a death of a life, as we knew it.
Yes.
Not even considering, the good, the bad, whatever. It is just different, and because what we're experiencing now, I think most people, have not experienced anything like this. And so I feel that it is really important that we take time out.
Yes.
And we mourn in the ways that is most helpful for each of us, and to also be cognizant in our dealings with one another.
Yes.
That the other, whether it's one-on-one or with a group, I mean, it's not so much a group these days, right? Unless it's a group, that they also are experiencing this, and that they may not even be aware of it.
Yeah.
Or if they are aware of it, that maybe they are minimizing it. And yeah. So I just think that it's important we acknowledge it.
Yes.
At the least, acknowledge it. That's at the minimum. And then do the things that we need to do to, for us to say to ourselves, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm mourning.
Yes.
And to give ourselves that time to move through the stages. And I think that will better equip us all.
Yes.
To deal with what lies ahead.
I agree with you, Laurie, because whether you like it or not, you're facing a lot of stuff about yourself. A lot of, for everybody, stuff is coming up. And, it's like the stages of mourning, the shock and disbelief that, oh my God, that this has happened. And then the anger, then the sadness, and the denial, and, like I myself have talked about staying, positive and staying in gratitude, but always being truthful to where you're at. But very often what happens is you're denying the fact that that other shadow self is coming up, the anger is coming up, the grief is coming up. And it's very important, as you say, to look at it and to actually feel it and acknowledge to yourself that life as you knew it has totally changed. It's totally, totally changed. It's never going to be the same again. It'll be different. Yeah, we probably all come out of the lockdown, but life will be very different. And we really, as you say, need to acknowledge that and acknowledge that we may not like it at all that way. We have to accept it, but we may not like it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you were talking about compassion, as I mentioned to you, I'm going to be doing a presentation about compassion this Sunday. And in my research, I came across something that I think is very akin to what we're talking about in terms of the mourning.
Yes.
And that is a term called compassion fatigue. I didn't even know that there was such a term.
Can there be compassion fatigue?
Compassion fatigue, yes. And what it related, in the article that I read, what it related to was the people that most often experience this are people who are, I will say, in the helping professions, physicians, nurses, medical, social workers, firefighters, emergency, service workers, police, because they so often see things on a regular basis that most people don't have to deal with. As an example, I remember I used to be a caseworker for the county when I was living in San Antonio, Texas. And I worked in the sexual abuse unit. And it was primarily families that we were dealing with where the sexual abuse was occurring within the family. And we had custody. The state had custody of the children because for their own safety, they needed to be removed from the homes for a time. And I remember other people who did not work in our unit would talk about how sick our sense of humor was, because we were dealing with issues that were so on some levels horrendous.
Yes.
I had a client who was under 2 years old.
Oh.
And these are things that, on one level, we know that they happen. And on another level, it's almost too difficult to comprehend, but that was my job.
Yes.
And I think that, and so in that kind of situation, you know, because I was compassionate, obviously, towards the children.
Yes.
I was compassionate, you know, maybe towards the other family members, but also it was important to be compassionate to the perpetrators. And that's not very easy. And when you see this day in and day out,
Yes.
that's where the compassion fatigue comes in.
Yes.
And I think there's a corollary to what we are going through right now.
Yes.
That, yes, some of the people are experiencing horrendous things.
Yes.
They've perhaps experienced horrendous things, you know, throughout their life. But a lot of people are experiencing things that, and on like a daily basis, and especially if they're watching TV, you know, or, you know, in front of their computers, you know, looking at sites or whatever about all the different events that are happening around the world, that's also where fatigue comes in.
Yes.
And I think that, I mean, you know, we all talk about we have to be nourished from within
Yes.
first.
Absolutely.
But I think it's so easy right now to be depleted,
Yeah.
you know, from within. And so I think that people in some respects probably watch TV or whatever kind of for the numbing effect, but I really encourage people to, you know, yeah, if you want to watch the news, you know, do it like 30 minutes or an hour a day, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, unplug, turn off your computer if you're going to all the different news sites or whatever. Because it's a cumulative effect, and that's where the fatigue comes in, and it's then so much more difficult to move through the mourning process.
Yes.
You know, because it's kind of it just continues to we kind of continue to be, I hate to use the word re-victimized, but we're doing that to ourselves.
Yes.
And I think that in order to fully move on, we need to take the steps where we continue to replenish ourselves. And therefore we can then be truly, you know, compassionate to ourselves and to others.
Yes.
Without it feeling like, oh my God, you know,
Yes.
you know, just like I, you know, it's like, how much more do I have to take? Or, you know, I really don't feel like being understanding.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of that stuff that's
Of
coming
course.
up.
Yeah, there is. That's why I'm laughing, because I know it. I see things coming up in me, you know, and I don't watch TV all the time. And I spend a lot of time on also, like, you know, introspection and trying to be the best version of me that I can be. And along with that comes a lot of these things, like from nowhere. And you know, they're coming up and like getting into these huge giants in front of me. So I know that it's there for everybody. If it's there for me, it has to be there for everyone else. The grief and the sadness and the, you know, when is it going to end, the frustration. And I feel that I live a very privileged life, and at the same time, these emotions do come up. You can't pretend that they're not there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's so important that we acknowledge all of that.
Yes.
I think not beat ourselves up.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting because one of the things I find happening for myself in this time, we may have talked about this the last time, just things are coming up that I, have not felt, for years,
Yeah,
and
same
it's just, it's like, where is this coming from? It's like, oh my
Exactly.
God.
But didn't I work on that? And isn't it worked out? And why is it coming back again? I've done it. I've done the work. And hello, why are you back? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then also one of the other things that I've noticed is that I question my capability.
Oh my God, Laurie.
You know,
I've just talked to my friend about this morning. I said, I'm losing my confidence. I don't know why. I keep questioning myself. Are you sure? And, why? I've always been very confident. I just feel, yes, it can happen. And yes, I will do it. And suddenly I'm not that confident anymore. Yeah.
well, and I think I totally get that because, there have been some things that have happened recently with my job, and I I'm not going to say I would have never, maybe handled it the way I did or felt, some of the things that I have felt as a result. But I, but yeah, I think there's more questioning, and questioning in and of itself is not bad,
Yeah.
but I think that it's important to maybe that if a situation occurs or if we have a response to something, it's like, because what I did in one particular situation is I talked to myself and I said, okay, maybe I didn't handle that in the best way possible or in the best way, but I handled it the best way that I could at the time.
Yeah.
Maybe if similar situation comes up, I will be cognizant of what happened the last time, and so make an effort to maybe respond or to make a decision in a different way.
Yeah.
Rather than spending a lot of time kind of beating ourselves up.
Wow, that's really good. I spend a lot of time beating myself up. I shouldn't have done it like that. I shouldn't have said it like that. Maybe if I hadn't responded, maybe if I just hadn't said anything, yeah, that's a good one. Next time I just won't say anything. And then I find, it doesn't always work. So I think this is just slow things down so much that you keep second guessing yourself in certain situations. Because there's so much coming up for everybody all the time. And as you said, it's very good to acknowledge it, and it's very good to not pretend it's not there.
Yeah, but it's and I think equally important to stay as grounded as possible.
Absolutely.
And that means continuing our self-care, doing our meditation.
I do the breath work, walking, yoga, eating healthy, drinking enough water, sleeping enough.
Yeah.
I find that that's very important.
And I think also reaching out to other people because, if you're feeling bad about yourself, I think it's a tendency to kind of withdraw and to go within.
Yeah.
And and we're isolated enough as it is right now.
Yeah.
Even I think there are even people who are introverts, total introverts, who are kind of like over it.
Yes. Just remember, if you're feeling bad about yourself, please reach out to your loved ones or reach out for some sort of help. Don't just bottle it all in. There's enough of that at the moment. We're isolated enough, as Laurie says. Reach out, connect. It's very important at this time.
Yeah. I had reached out to somebody yesterday, and their response was just so lovely. And it was, you know, I mean, most of the time, I don't need to receive affirmations from other people. I mean, it's nice, it's like icing on the cake.
Yes.
But I think, especially in these times, and their response was just so lovely and it was so affirming.
Yes.
You know, that we need to do that for
Yeah.
each other.
We do.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
I see you, you matter. I care about you, I love you. I'm here for you in what, you know, in whatever way that manifests itself. But yeah.
But before you go, hit the subscribe button. Please like my video, share with your friends, and click on the bell icon. Don't miss my videos. Thank you. Bye.